Gorgon point at $1,000 will probably be fine, but I don't think they're getting away with these $1,500 Strix now Gorgon laptops anymore. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Start your free trial and get 50% off your first year through the link below. Also, of course, CDkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Pro for $24. And then the Mall Race 2026 AX17 Pro laptop. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great now that the power is back on, and I actually had a suspicion this would happen. I prepared to do a Panther Lake review, and I'm glad I did. The video's performing well, and I think Panther Lake's the biggest release of this year all of a sudden, and this deserves a ton of coverage because I think this might be better than I think it might be better than Alder Lake for its time.
Gonna fight you on that. Gorgon Point's the biggest release of this year.
We'll get to what I think about Gorgon Point because. Minus some massive testing error out there and everyone I've talked to, not excited about that one, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. But people watching this, I suspected this might happen. After I recorded the Panther Lake review or analysis, you would say, by the fire, my gas fireplace, using batteries to power a Strix Halo laptop, got that all done, and then boom, power's on, which made uploading the video much easier. Of course, I'm glad I could do that from my desktop, but that is why you saw on one day me power out. It did actually come on pretty quickly after I made that video.
Well, I'm glad you were able to record it in a I haven't seen the video yet, but perhaps a cozier looking area than usual, but
yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because we were on vacation this past weekend in Denver, Colorado. We had never really been there. I mean, I've been through the airport like a dozen times. I don't think that really counts as going to Denver. And we had a great time. I mean, we saw bison, coyotes, tons of animals in the Arsenal Wildlife Park. It's basically, if anyone's been on the Animal Kingdom safari, it's there's that in Denver for free. There's just a giant open area, those little metal bridges animals are walking their hooves over. You drive over those and you're just in the safari, and they're not our fault if you get out of the car and a bison attacks you. Stay in the car. And we saw a coyote, a huge one, just walking by us. We saw endless prairie dogs. It's incredible what they have there. And despite the forecast, Denver was not hit that bad. It was cold, but it was sunny. And boy, at the Denver airport, dude, they know how to operate like a military in the winter. There's a blizzard, and they're just sending off planes with an assembly line de-icing. Amazing. We even got to land in Nashville. Yeah, our power was out, so it's been an annoying 24 hours.
Well, that's pretty fun. And yeah, my one memory of Colorado, Tom, is when we went to Steamboat Springs when we were kids, and I broke my arm on a putt-putt golf course.
We were planning the trip, me and my girlfriend, and I was like, there's that. Oh, and there's where Dan broke his arm.
Yes, I have I don't think we talked about that much on this podcast, but I have a penchant for really weird, stupid injuries. So we've got the multiple shoulder dislocations in a pool, shoulder dislocation while I'm sleeping, breaking my arm on a putt-putt golf course. It's really been a lot of fun injuries throughout my life.
Yeah, I remember I had a running joke when, what were you, 8?
It was 8 or 9, something like that.
Where I would say, oh yeah, when anyone asked, how'd your brother break his arm? I'd be like, well, these guys jumped us, they started fighting us, and then Dan tripped in a putt-putt golf course.
Well, no, he was he fought them. He went and fought all of them off, and then after they left, he tripped on a putt-putt golf course.
Yeah.
And then I got sad.
You did not like that joke when I made it at the time.
No, I was freaked out about the fact that my arm was like this for about 8 months.
But Your arm is quite fine. Stronger
My
than
arm-
ever, if I may say so.
Yes. Some might say the strongest it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, probably. But all right, let us move forward. We don't really have any corrections or opening reader mails, and we have quite a few. This is one of the bigger news cycles we've had in a while, I would actually say. So let's not waste any more time with story number 1. Nvidia scandals explode. All right, here's the write-up. The continued story of RTX supply dropping got a jolt on January 15th when Tim from Hardware Unboxed revealed that Nvidia has essentially wiped off 5070 Ti from the market. That is quoting him. They arrived at the conclusion after discussions with several AIBs and retailers, with specifically an Asus PR rep putting the cherry on the top by saying the 5070 Ti was being end-of-lifed at Asus, and then confirming it again, confirmed it twice, everybody, in writing. In writing twice, they confirmed they were end-of-lifing the 5070 Ti. Furthermore, they confirmed that they were told that the 5060 Ti 16GB was also facing severe shortages as well and was probably going to be at least effectively discontinued. The reaction to the revelation was, I guess, unsurprisingly mixed, with some dismissing the report after Nvidia said that all SKUs are being shipped, without elaborating on how many of them are being shipped, and Asus walking back their statement several times. Well, other people actually have eyes and can use them. However, over time, the Nvidia shilling access journalists were eventually ratioed over all of this because it became impossible to ignore reality. A reality that was further confirmed by this channel when we put out multiple videos, both supporting Hardware Unboxed initial reporting and also further reporting that things were actually getting worse than either channel had initially stated, even by us. Indeed, by now, the situation is basically that all NVIDIA desktop and even possibly most of NVIDIA's laptop GPU lineup are effectively, this is the way I would put it, paused in terms of meaningful production. Indeed, according to our sources at Moore's Law is Dead, this is because NVIDIA has finally had to reconcile with the reality of them overbooking AI orders tremendously and is saving the high-end dies pretty much exclusively for their AI customers. So specifically, this is what's going down, though, just to put a bullet point on them. The 5090, 5070 Ti, 5060 Ti 16GB, and even, as this channel reported exclusively, the 5060 will be effectively gone for at least the next 6 months. That is a time frame stated exactly as so by several sources, at least 6 months. Meanwhile, the 5080, 5070, and 5060 Ti 8GB will enjoy a trickle of supply, but not remotely enough to see MSRPs to stop MSRPs from ballooning to ridiculous levels. Indeed, the only SKU that might have okay-ish supply is the 5050, thanks to it using older GDDR6. Remember, GDDR7, the capacity to make that can be used to make GDDR7 or HBM for other customers. Also, it has a tiny die, 150 millimeter squared. Although, to be clear, supply is still throttled. Just because the 5050 will get the most supply out of everything I've referenced doesn't mean that it isn't having its supply cut down a ton. And because nobody's probably going to want it above $300, like I heard from someone, it might get to $400 or more. I don't know. I think people are still going to see this one as being effectively gone as well. No one wants an 8GB $400 card this year, especially one that's weaker than what, a 4060 or around a 4060. The good news is that both Hardware Unboxed and us could independently confirm that there are no such cuts to overall manufacturing wafer capacity coming from Radeon, with the only SKU on the kind of a chopping block being the 9060XT 16GB. And even there, it seems to be a minor drop compared to what NVIDIA is instituting on their end. In fact, Radeon is publicly saying that they are trying to work to improve supply as much as possible, although I believe from what I'm hearing, this is true. They are. I wouldn't expect them to be able to do that much beyond what they already planned a year ago, because they already bought this capacity a while ago. So AMD is doing their best. There's only so much they can do. Their prices will still go up. And I don't know. NVIDIA is pretty much, again, could they start supply near the end of the year? Yes, I hear they might, but that isn't even decided yet. And as of now, they have paused production effectively, underline that word, Shillers, effectively on the 50 series. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing that confuses me most about this is just like the way NVIDIA there are now several channels I think that have like talked about this, confirmed it, like
Hardware Canucks, I'll give them a shout out as well.
Canucks, I believe like Daniel Owens had videos on it.
DeBauer did something.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a lot of channels with a lot of credibility, like talking about this, and I just find Nvidia's like apprehension to be able to talk about this type of stuff a little bit confusing. I mean, frankly, like given the current state of the market, I don't think many people should be that shocked by it because there's not as much RAM available. They can sell these dies or their capacity for way more money if it's going to AI. I think it was just kind of a matter of time before they started really prioritizing AI over the gaming market. And just this refusal to acknowledge that that's what's happening feels really weird and off to me. And I don't think I fully understand it unless like they don't want to make the announcement if they're able to spin it back up in like the next 6 months or whatever. Which even if that does happen, it's like, okay, the next 6 months, that's going to be getting towards the tail end of this generation anyways. But
I think we talked about that on the recent die shrink, that like, even if that was the thing that came up in it, like even if they spin up production at the end of this year, I mean, it's coming out by then, you're like less than a year from the new release. So who even really cares?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a weird form of gaslighting from Nvidia that I feel like becomes increasingly common where I don't know, Nvidia, the way they do their marketing is so filled with it that at a certain point is like that's the expectation, I think. And I don't know, part of like the reaction to me is almost just like, oh yeah, Nvidia kind of just lies through their teeth constantly in all of their marketing, so who cares? I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is something Tim said that's really stuck with me. That's really starting to like dominate my thoughts, not just about Nvidia, but about the way, I mean, many governments around the world are talking, which is why are we supposed to pretend what we're seeing isn't true? And also, why is this even necessary? And I understand why some governments are lying to their people, but when it comes to Nvidia, I don't get it. Like what Tim said is when a storm, the example I came up with is when a storm wipes out a bunch of like banana crops, like he's like at my local grocery store in Australia, they'll say, yeah, there's been issues with banana crops this year, so prices are going up and it's going to be hard for us to get them. They don't go, we're still getting just as many bananas even though they're not in front of you. And I agree, I don't understand why Nvidia is doing this, except I don't know if Nvidia even knows when not to lie anymore. Like, do they even understand they don't have to lie?
I mean, to me, the most rational reason would be like, it is really reaching an inflection point, I feel like, with AI because like, I mean, this is mostly going to be going towards AI capacity or meeting AI demand. Is AI and AI slop are almost becoming synonymous terms at this point, as there's really been, I think, a massive, over time, aside from like the true AI evangelists, I think public sentiment is turning more and more against AI. And Nvidia keeps trying to push it more and more, like at their keynotes. Like, I don't know if this press cycle, like, this is actually impacting people's ability to buy cards for the thing that actually gets like a mostly positive press, I would say. Like, maybe it's just to avoid those negative press cycles, but that's just the only theory I can think of.
But again, either way, there's going to be anger because people are angry, not because of what Nvidia is telling them, but because they can't get a graphics card at a reasonable price. And so either way, they're going to get mad. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's this easy to manipulate people in 2026. Maybe everyone's brains were broken by Facebook. I don't know. But like, from what I can tell, people should still get mad if they can't get what they want. And if you believe in AI, I mean, I would find it refreshing if they were honest, but if AI is so important, then just tell them, we think this is more important. We're pausing production. We will increase production again for the holidays. Stay tuned for further whatever, or like our obligations we have to do. Like, then people go, okay, so we're not crazy. They are doing this. You know, I mean, an example I gave to Tim was like, when the tariff war started last year, Audi openly said, we're pausing the import of these models to the US. They didn't go, oh, they're totally still there in the same numbers. Like, what do you gain by doing that? I don't know that you actually gain anything. I just think Nvidia thinks they have to avoid all negative press at any cost without realizing like even what causes negative press or like what would really help them.
Yeah, because when the majority of Blackwell's lineup at this point seems to be somewhere between like 70 and double MSRP. It's like, well,
I just checked
clearly
the 5080,
happened.
by the way, the 5080, which I saw video cards
MSRP.
saying, oh, don't worry, they're just prioritizing the 5080. Why? Really? Then why the fuck is it $1,500? I mean, like they're all ridiculous. Even the 5070, the one that has some of the lesser supply cuts and is the one a lot of people don't want that much because it only has 12 gigabytes. That one's like $650 now.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, like, when you see the prices and graphics cards suddenly like go up by several $100s to
in like a week.
Yeah, or if the 5090 by like $1,000 or $1,500,
$3,000.
Yeah, it's just, well, something clearly shifted in the market, and I don't think it's just whatever euphemism it was, like it's the market adjusting. Yeah, I mean, it is the market adjusting. It's the market adjusting to there not being 5090s on the market.
Yeah, and so I don't know what else to say about this. It's just I mean, Nvidia just doesn't seem to know when to lie. They just seem to always lie. And so it's like, whatever. I mean, it's like at a certain point, you don't get mad at the shark trying to eat you. It's just doing what it's been trying to do for 500 million years. It's been programmed. You know, sharks evolved before. I think they think we developed empathy. It's just an eating machine. It doesn't really think about what it's doing. You know, whatever. But like the journalists that like actually take Nvidia's PR and just regurgitate it without even checking the market. These people, please stop sharing their links. Stop clicking on their websites. They are lying to you and propagating lies. And it is time for gamers to stop supporting the people that just mindlessly regurgitate stuff. It's pathetic and it needs to stop, or it won't, or it'll get worse and you'll never know what's true. And it's up to you, everyone listening and watching, you know, which of course, most of the people watching this are probably the people already who have realized that. And that's why they like our channel, but tell other people as well. Cause I'm exploding over this. I'm like, they're literally like all of the previous lies, like during the pandemic, like there was some wiggle room, but now they're just like, no, we're still like, you can still get this, and then it's not there. It's like, this is so clear cut a lie. I just, when will it end?
Yeah, and it's just strange, like seeing a significant amount of pushback on something like this when it's being openly discussed by multiple outlets, and it's being. It very clearly is reflected in the market that this is what's happening. And it's just frankly not shocking that not AMD, that Nvidia would want to reallocate a lot of their resources towards selling AI chips right now.
Yeah. The final thing I'll say is a tweet I put out was, reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. And I showed a clip from 1984. I know why governments do this. I don't get why the press is doing this about gaming products. I mean, for the love of God, people, stop. Jensen Wang, Nvidia is not a bubble, writes in and says, why will it be AMD's fault that the 9070 series prices shoot up now that the 5070 Ti is EOL? Because people don't understand supply and demand. Yeah,
I mean, the market's going to adjust regardless. And even if the 9070 is being met with similar stock to what they have, there's going to be a lot of people that are just like, oh, I guess I'll get a 9070 now.
Right. It's, you know, AMD is, let's say, and they're probably less than this. They're like, if they're 20% of the market and then Nvidia cuts their market share in half, AMD is not going to make up for that if they double their production. So, yeah, AMD price will go up. I will say, checking right now, I'm seeing the 9070 XT at, there's a couple for $730. So, again, this seems to be holding what I said I've heard is, and somewhat predicted, I guess, like speculated based on what I've heard, which is that I don't think it's necessarily going to go to like $1,000. I think it's kind of just going to be like when the 9070 XT launched, like 10 to 30% above MSRP, not necessarily doubling in price despite what's going on with Nvidia. So I still think, and I've long said below 750, I think the 9070 XT is a fair price. I mean, you're getting 7900 XTX performance with lower power, much better ray tracing, for like 30% less than what you would have spent most of the time. I mean, I still think that's a fair price.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, I'm assuming also a lot of people will just see the market the way it is right now and just decide, well, I guess I'm just not going to buy a GPU right now.
Yeah, especially with what's going on with RAM at the same time. Blaze writes in, with the recent news of the 5070 Ti and 5060 Ti 16GB being effectively end-of-lifed, and NVIDIA's apparent focus on 8GB cards like the 5060, this was probably submitted before I put out that leak, how do you think the market will react in the coming months and the rest of 26? Do you think they may restart production later this year? Well, I've already covered in my 5060 effectively end-of-life or whatever I said it was, production pause leak, that what I'm told is they will reassess in Q4. So that doesn't even mean they will restart production. But let me see. Do you think they may restart production later? Yeah, they might. I think they're going to just look and see if RAM is easier to get. And if it is, they'll probably in like September spin up and try to produce a ton for November. Like, it's plausible.
I mean, if that causes a huge crash in GPU prices, I guess the recommendation will be the opposite of what it is right now. I guess you can buy now, or frankly, by that point, just wait for the next generation, depending on what that looks like it's going to end up being priced at. But
Mr. Tiger writes in, can you give some assurance that NVIDIA is not abandoning dedicated consumer GPU space altogether in the next few years? I'm worried they're going to do only paper launches these next few years through all of 2027. Well, so what do you mean? Do you actually mean abandon gaming, or do you mean this is how they're going to operate? Because this is how, I think how NVIDIA is operating with the 30 series and the 50 series is going to be something they do anytime it benefits them to support some other market. Like anytime, like the way they are so blatantly lying about 50 series supply tells me this is the plan moving forward. Anytime they think it benefits them, lie to gamers, supply or other customers to make more money, bring in GPUs eventually, like 12 months after they supposedly launched, and then everyone forgets it happened again, like it's Groundhog's Day. So I think that's their plan. Now, will they literally leave the consumer space? Well, my answer is no, they will not. But for fun, I sent this to a source I have at NVIDIA, and the person said, Tom, GeForce is a $16 billion per year business and growing by itself. No, it will never be abandoned. So there's a quote from someone at NVIDIA. Yeah,
that would be insanely short-sighted to abandon the gaming market, which is, I don't know what NVIDIA kind of like cut their teeth on was and why they're as popular and recognizable of a company and brand as they are today.
Yeah. And also in 2025, revenue rose to approximately $32 billion. So all of GeForce's half of all of the revenue AMD makes a year. No way would they abandon GeForce. It's just, I mean, as long as AI is worth 10 times, 100 times more than that, well, that will be the focus. But no, they would never abandon a market that big. And I've always been told there's a part of Jensen that will never, it's a pride and an ego thing for him to have the best gaming products. So I think his psychology would also dictate no.
I mean, AI data center, people that buy cards for AI data centers don't think leather jackets are very cool, I hear. So, I mean, for his ego alone, they need to keep in the gaming market.
Absolutely. All right. Let us now move on to another story here with story number 2. Ryzen 7 9850X3D pricing confirmed, according from Tom's Hardware. AMD's Ryzen 7 9850X3D, a contender for the best CPU, I think we know what it will be in terms of gaming at least, will hit retail for $499 on January 29th. This is a highly anticipated Zen 5 3D V-Cache chip that aims to dethrone the 9800X3D. It says arguably the fastest gaming processor created. It's not arguable, Tom's Hardware. Let's see, the whole surprise. Just skipping ahead here. Yeah, so it features a substantial 400 megahertz boost clock advantage over its predecessor, which should translate into up to a 7% improvement in games, according to AMD. Naturally, you should wait for some real-world benchmarks for a true performance verdict. Additionally, On a marketing slide for the CPU attained by video cards, the company says there's only a 1% difference in FPS between DDR5 4800 and DDR5 5600. This has been true for XRD chips since really the beginning of time because of the extensive on-die L3, which allows the CPU to access RAM less frequency. Managing latency is key in gaming workloads, so that extra L3 does help V-cache models keep the same performance while having slower memory. And so what do we think about all this? Well, ultimately, the price makes sense. Since the new chip has the better binned I/O die, at least according to what we're told, and AMD will hopefully soon use a much more impressive 9950 XRD2. That means this does cost a bit more to produce. These are special binned I/O die samples they're using to make these, and also probably just substantially better binned CCDs as well. But does the SKU make sense? Well, in the past, such refreshes were often just used to maintain an MSRP. Like, I don't remember which ones, but I know Zen 2, like the XT models, they would launch them like with like a 2 to 5% overclock to try to keep the same MSRP, and then kind of basically end of life some of the older ones. But the 9850 XRD instead is raising the price while not offering that much more, and thus our advice is to just get a 9800 XRD if it is ever 10% cheaper, unless reviews demonstrate that the 9850 XRD indeed can hit insanely higher RAM speeds, and your apps benefit from insanely higher RAM speeds. Actually, on that note, I must say, too, that when it comes to their marketing for DDR5 4800 being the same as 5600 in performance, it makes sense why the 9850 XRD might actually still have a better I/O die than the 9800 XRD, and yet AMD might not talk about it because they might be trying to avoid negative press for telling gamers that their thing supports like DDR5 9000 or whatever, when that would cost as much as a PlayStation 5 Pro. And instead, it would make sense to focus on talking about the fact that you can get the most budget memory ever and you'll get the same performance. So that's why I think they're focusing on this, at least until they launch the 9850 XRD2, which I don't remember where, but I saw more rumors out there that another AIB or someone confirmed that it's out there again. Like, I think they're going to save the 9950 X3D2 for when RAM prices start to come down, and that's also where they'll start bragging about the RAM speeds both of these models can use. But until then, yeah, I think they'll market the fact that, look, it's the fastest gaming processor. It extends their lead against Intel, and they're going to charge an extra $20 for it because, well, you don't need fast RAM to use this. So what do you think, Dan?
Oh, yeah, and in this current market, that is a real asset, like especially with only a $20 price differential between that and the 9800 X3D. I don't know, maybe it's the marketing could be like spend a little more on this and save some money on the RAM, or I doubt they'll say that explicitly, but that could be a driving force towards getting this over the 9800 X3D. And beyond that, like, I think the 9850 X3D, like, I think its pricing kind of reveals that it's overall, at least in this current market, not that interesting of a product to me. It's like, all right, slightly better performance, a pretty much negligible amount more money, like it, especially if we're talking about like the entire price of a build, like $20 is not much. And, that's because as far as these refreshes go, this is, I don't know, it's a kind of uninteresting refresh. That's not to say like it's a bad CPU by any means. I don't think it is. It's just like, I'm not saying this is the dumbest thing on the planet because it's priced at $600. Just keep getting the 9800 X3D. But I'm also not saying, well, you mean
$500?
No, I mean, like, if this were $600,
oh, sure.
It's like, this thing is terrible, it's stupid, but it's also only $20 more. So it's like, I don't know. I guess pick your poison. That's kind of what this thing is to me, where it's like, I'm not going to hard recommend one or the other that much. They're, in my eyes, all very, very close to identical products. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think. It's kind of like it's kind of like if the 7700 XT and RDNA 3 had 16 gigs of RAM. It's like one's 10% more for 10% more performance, and whatever, get whichever one you want. That's kind of what these are going to be. Because if I look at 9800 X3D, it is down to 450. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's usually about 450 right now. So
At 450, I think I would just say get the 9800X 3D. I mean,
It's like, I
would
don't know. I
want to
don't
see
really
the full
care.
build, I guess. But it's like, all right, you're spending.
I'd probably spend the extra money, actually. Screw it. What if I want faster RAM in the future? It's just like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you're spending extra money for a little bit more performance. And yeah, usually when you spend a little bit more money at this price point, there's some there you don't get the gains like for the pricing. Like I don't know. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'd say. It's fine. And I will say this too, as a final disclaimer. I'm aware that this comes out this week. I think reviews will come out like the day after we post this. But I think I'm comfortable talking about it now a bit, just because I don't think there's going to be that many surprises. I think the only surprises may be that it probably overclocks okay in the right situation. And if you clock it higher and you do actually have access to fast RAM, then it might be pretty good. Otherwise, I don't look, guys, it's going to be 5 to 10% faster and cost 10% more than what it's replacing or being priced above. I don't have much to say. I don't think it's that interesting, but it's not complete crap. It's not like these refreshes where it's like 1% faster. So I don't think it's like bad. It's just okay.
It's just, yeah, it's kind of just there. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it needs to exist that much like in the current market, just because I also feel like these refreshes are like maintain a win, but I guess it's there.
All right. Well, what is also there is another story that we have to get to. Perfect transition, everybody. This piece of content is brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch is a private, ad-free, so you are not the product. The product you're using is the actual product with this one. Personal finance platform that brings all of your accounts into one clean dashboard that allows you to automatically track your spending and net worth and help you stay financially aligned by, well, first of all, yes, allowing you to control your finances without micromanagement. With keeping everything in one place, not 20 places, you're not getting notifications. You can turn those off on the other apps from a bunch of different places, like whatever manages your IRA, whatever manages your investments here. This resonates with me, as this is an annoyance that I had to deal with before Monarch, and you can get rid of it yourself as well, because you don't need to worry about all these apps anymore. Once they're all integrated, you can control everything from one place. And then you also have more control as well, as Monarch has AI-powered insights that can summarize where spending increases, unusual transactions, and where total net worth changes are coming from. Again, all in one place without having to open a bunch of apps and get tons of notifications. Plus, it also allows you to confidently monitor your progress. It lets you watch your net worth, project it out, and help you come up with and keep goals having to do with paying down debt and making investments. This is easy, cross-platform, both on desktop and mobile, flexible budgeting. Plus, it syncs with 13,000 plus institutions for fast, secure setup with all major banks, credit cards, and brokerages, and it even is couples ready, so partners can link their accounts and share and monitor their finances together. So, if you want these features in your life and you also want to support Moore's Law is Dead, you can start a free trial and get 50% off your first year of total money clarity using my link below and using offer code MOORE50. That's MOORE 50. Doing so doesn't just help you monitor your finances, it also helps Moore's Law is Dead. So support Moore's Law is Dead by starting a free trial with Monarch Money through the link below today. Story number 3, Gorgon Point reviews are in. Well, I'm sorry, this was a placeholder thing there. We were hoping for more to be in. What I will say is early Gorgon Point data is in. Sure. All right, so we do have some early testing from Notebook Check, though, that came in the last minute. So let me read this here. The new Ryzen AI 400 Gorgon Point processors are only a minor update with a slightly higher frequency. Essentially, the multi-core performance in the TDP range up to 35 watt remains very good and competitive. However, AMD is likely to lose some ground to the competition, especially in terms of single-core performance and graphics as well. While AMD was quite competitive overall in 25, the tide should shift significantly in favor of Intel. I'm not even going to go through the data. There's not that much to say. If we didn't get a last-minute review before we started recording, which we actually did, I was just going to say that from what I have heard behind the scenes, Gorgon Point is not Hawk Point, at least so far. We'll see. We'll see what the Fox testing suggests. But from what I'm seeing here, it's it's probably a nothing burger, unfortunately. Like, I saw some early testing from Just Josh where in the performance curve, it was actually less efficient than Strix. Like lower performance at same power, suggesting it could be a Raptor Lake refresh situation. Having said that, I asked Just Josh about it. I was like, hey, am I reading this correctly? Is it at same power Gorgon Point actually underperforms? Josh said, to be clear, that's the best Strix laptop we had. And this is the first Gorgon Point we've tested. So it could be an outlier. But what that would tell you is I think Gorgon Point's maybe 5% faster and brings probably no efficiency boost. Again, unlike Hawk Point, which brought pretty substantial efficiency boosts and like 20% better integrated graphics performance. That I don't think that's what we're going to see with Gorgon Point.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw in the like testing I was able to look at for Gorgon Point, I don't want to like hyper focus too much in on those regressions and performance, because to me it looks like it could just be, I don't know, some weird outlier that occurs just due to the nature of the testing that exists. And I would like to see more to see if like that regression is actually locked in. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but regardless, to me, it seems like Gorgon Point is at best pretty much the same thing as Hawk Point. Not Hawk Point. Strix, I guess maybe a little better at higher power, and at worst, maybe slightly worse, which to me, that runs the gamut of why the hell did you release this to, at best, I guess they need to do an annualized release to satisfy the OEMs. And
yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, when the best case scenario is, well, we had to put it out because OEMs like having a new number by their laptops every year. Yeah, that's not like a rousing endorsement of it. And yeah, Gorgon Point, I would say, is possibly it might be the most disappointing launch from AMD since Zen, honestly. But I mean, you have to factor it in that it's just like a nothing burger refresh.
Pretty much. I mean, again, we'll see. The Fox hasn't tested it yet. Just Josh hasn't finished testing it. He did want me to emphasize that too, that whatever I tell you guys, they're not done testing. He would, if they would already have a video out. Don't take one test to mean that. But that so far, all early indicators are this is very underwhelming. And it's actually quite frustrating because RDNA 4 is fantastic. And imagine if they went to even 12 compute units of RDNA 4 after 16 of 3.5, they probably boost performance 20-30%, have FSR4 support. I mean, the Gorgon Point, and we'll get to it soon eventually, I think, like a Gorgon Halo, if they were to have just upgraded to RDNA 4 and had some of the small tweaks and binnions that we're getting with newer Zen 5 stuff in the CPU, just, 5% overclock to the CPU, maybe 10% add addition to the multi-threading, but then a GPU, that's 30 to 50% faster. This would be amazing. Actually, it would be barely behind Panther Lake in integrated graphics then, or maybe not barely, but a little behind, maybe being a lot cheaper. I don't know. I don't know why they got so lazy. And I think, well, we'll see. I have a lot to say about Panther Lake. We're about to get to it. Like, this was a very weird blind spot here to do this bad of a refresh right next to Panther Lake. Like, I don't know what AMD, I think AMD might finally have, for the first time, underestimated Intel instead of just assuming they deliver every time. Because everyone behind the scenes thought Panther Lake wouldn't be that great, but it's pretty great. Maybe AMD just thought it would be another Meteor Lake, and what a mistake.
Yeah, and just for me, like, just next to Panther Lake, this is a massive disappointment. And then just from like an AMD tech perspective, I don't think this spells like doom for AMD's future offerings with CPU. Is like it's a bad release in a year in a cycle where you don't expect much out of AMD to come out, but that doesn't look very good next to Intel, which, I think Intel is going to have a pretty good year, or should have a pretty good year in laptop.
It's all AI now, so I don't know, but in laptop, yes. All right, we have a question here from AI Generated Fish who says, what is with AMD's OEM laptop adoption? Yes, there was one new Strix Halo laptop announced. I assume that's how you would say this, AI generated fish. But I don't recall seeing any models tooting Gorgon Point and the Zephyrus G14 apparently switched to Panther Lake. We've been hearing, well, so I know Just Josh is getting multiple Gorgon Point laptops into test, so they clearly are going to be out there. This year, AMD is going big on laptop for seemingly 3 years. Okay, again, AI generated fish, you're full of crap when you keep saying that. AMD has taken substantial market share from Intel and laptop year after year after year after year. They have been going big.
It's just not going to be 80% market share in a year.
Overnight, yeah. So this crap, grow up, man. Enough of the comments about AMD not going big. AMD has doubled, tripled in size as a company over the past whatever years. No, they have gone big in laptop. It just seems like they're kind of fumbling 2026, right?
Yeah.
And Carbon Cry wrote in as a response to, he said, scale and cost. There are limits to how fast AMD can scale. And unlike Intel, AMD doesn't have to invest in laptop collaboration. Joint marketing funds, right. That helps Intel a ton get good contracts. Well, Intel needs the revenue even with lower margin and higher cost. This is especially pronounced with launch laptops where co-engineering helps the most. Yes, there's a reason Intel always has more special designs, or usually, not always, but usually has more special designs. It's because they directly work hand in hand with these OEMs to build the laptops around Panther Lake or whatever lake they're making. So that's why Intel has an advantage there. But, I will say this too, AI generated fish, AMD is crushing Intel right now, and they're making far more money. Intel has to be aggressive in laptop. They have to, because this is all they got left. They missed everything. Smartphones, they missed tablets, they missed game consoles, we'll see. Maybe they'll get into some handhelds now, but they almost missed the gaming handheld. They might have still missed it. Like AMD has a brand power in handheld gaming, like that alone might carry them against Panther. Like, we'll have to wait and see how sales do there. But what they have left is laptop. So Intel cannot lose laptop. Whereas AMD, actually, it's not as important as you would think when they're actually making tons more money right now in data center and AI. So I think what we're seeing right now is AMD was pivoting pretty hard into laptop. And you saw that with Strix Halo and Strix and Kraken all launching in the same, almost within the same 12 months, as opposed to before where they had these very small upgrades here and there on the APUs. And then the AI boom happened. And they probably pulled some resources away from that. And I think that I think there's some mistakes were made, AI generated fish. I think Gorgon Point should have had RDNA 4, and it's kind of ridiculous it doesn't.
Yeah.
At this point. So I'm not going to make apologies for AMD about it, though. All right. Let us move on to the savior of the episode in terms of enthusiasm with story number 4. Intel Panther Lake reviews are in. All right, here we go. For the first time in a long while, the pair of AMD duds is followed up by an Intel dub, because Panther Lake caught up and exceeded AMD APUs in one fell swoop. In terms of CPU, we got what we expected. Arrow Lake performance at Lunar Lake efficiency, actually pretty much exactly. In DGPU laptops, Panther Lake is highly competitive with Strix and Gorgon Point, erasing AMD's slight advantage in performance and doing so with better efficiency, but it's really the graphics where Intel shines. Of course, only some Panther Lake SKUs are set up as big APUs, but those that are, they perform fantastically. Lunar Lake already punched above its weight in the 10 to 15 watt category, and Panther Lake preserves that while pushing through to 20 and 25 watts. Above that, Strix Halo does remain the ultimate APU, even winning in Geekbench single threading still. But Strix Halo is still an expensive niche product that you can't find in remotely as many laptops as we assume Panther Lake will be found in. Therefore, Panther Lake is impressive. No ifs, buts, or maybes. It is currently the best PC laptop chip. It puts Strix and Gorgon Point into the position of budget APUs, at least in the case of Gorgon, with Strix now having to come down in price if it wants to be competitive. Incredibly competes with Strix Halo, enables new experiences with its efficiency and GPU horsepower to boot, until finally has a winner on their hands, and AMD will have to respond quickly if they want to continue their push for the laptop market. Unfortunately for them, the only move right now is to drop the price of Strix Halo probably down to where I said it should always get to, $1,000 to $2,000 laptops, and then massively ramp up Gorgon Point supply. So it is nowhere near enough for the 2026 market otherwise. So yeah, I think that's that. Look, Gorgon Point at $1,000 will probably be fine, but I don't think they're getting away with these $1,500 Strix now Gorgon laptops anymore. And I think Strix Halo is going to have to, those new ones launching, the 388 8-core, that should be 1,500 or less. The 392, the 12-core with the full compute units, that should be 2,000 or less.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I covered it in the video I put out before we started recording, Dan. It's interesting. There are situations where Strix Halo still impresses. Like, it is not only more multi-threading performance, right? Strix Halo versus Panther. Like, Strix Halo gives you more multi-threading. It's also more efficient at it until you get really low. Like, even at like 30, I think 35 watts, Strix Halo gives you more performance than Panther, like a multi-threading at similar power. So it isn't a complete loss at everything in efficiency. I think sometimes that's true in gaming as well. But when you unplug from the wall and get specifically below like 25 watts, Panther like can just beat Strix Halo by double digits in integrated graphics performance. That's huge. A lot of laptops are below 45 watts. And people know that I've long said that I like laptops the most when they lose no performance or effectively no performance unplugging from a wall. Panther Lake gives you that. Unplugged from the wall, it's like 10, 20% weaker than Strix Halo. And it's like the same performance as an RTX 5050. This is a 50, all 50, it's not the 4050 that's gone. Anything below a 5070 Ti laptop is now pointless, in my opinion. Also because of Strix Halo, but now especially because of Panther Lake.
Yeah, I mean, I think as it stands now, like, I think at really high price point laptops with an iGPU like Strix Halo that pulls a lot of power, Strix Halo is still going to shine as like the strongest, I guess you would say, chip in the laptop market. But I don't know if you would call it the best at this point, because I think Panther Lake is just competitive / outright beating AMD at pretty much any other market with Panther Lake. And I guess we'll see how the lower end Strix Halo CPUs compete. But because like if they're priced properly, I think they could give Panther Lake a run for its money. But Panther Lake, I think at it, based on this, anything below like $1,800, I think is Panther Lake's world now. And that's great one for the market. I think AMD has to release those APUs out competitively now, and it's good for Intel. Like I've long been talking about wanting to see them execute well on one launch, and I guess this is the launch.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because we had, I reported that OEMs were calling it Pathetic Lake, and I'm sure there will be many people in the comments over the next month that say, well, why did you say that? It's like, well, I didn't say that. OEM said that to me, and why they said it, I believe, is because on paper, Panther Lake does not really raise performance. Like even like compared to Gorgon Point now, it's like what, 5-10% faster in multi-threading sometimes. Doesn't even technically beat Strix Halo in some apps, even single threading, although sometimes it does by a lot, to be fair. But it's like fundamentally, in terms of single multi-threading performance, you could get this laptop years ago. I think what happened is OEM said that's nothing new, and then they didn't believe what Intel was saying about efficiency or graphics, because they had been saying that for a long time. Yeah. And Meteor Lake, I cannot tell you how burned OEMs felt by Meteor Lake. They were told you wouldn't need to use a graphics card anymore. They were told I don't know what they really expected. They thought it'd beat a 1650 Ti, maybe get to like almost a 2060. They thought it would double battery life. Meteor Lake couldn't even beat Raptor Lake in battery, depending on what power consumption level you're at or what app you're running. It was a complete joke of a CPU compared to what they claimed it would be. And so if you think about Panther Lake, they basically were hearing the same story. Meteor Lake, they were like, oh, similar performance to Raptor Lake, much lower power, better graphics. They were basically told the same thing with Panther Lake. It's just this time it was actually what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think the iGPU is really where this thing stands out, because I don't know, based on what I saw in like the Fox's review for the Panther Lake, it seems like this thing will really kill in like thin and lights, and as you brought up earlier, in like handhelds, if they can win back some of that ground they lost with AMD with handhelds. Because I think this could at a minimum give AMD a run for its money, if not outright beat them at that like low power usage. That's really where this thing shines.
Yeah, and I will say as well, I was thinking about this before we started recording. Like, if Panther Lake doesn't take back decent market share, I guess it'd be for two reasons. Number one, it could be because it's unobtainium. And I have heard there could be severe availability issues. Having said that, I've heard, and this was the term used, strategic reserves of Lunar Lake were supposedly bought up late last year because that was before memory prices went up. And OEMs noticed Intel was charging the same price for Lunar Lake with memory already bundled on it. So they bought up millions and millions of Lunar Lake CPUs. So at a minimum, they have those. But that means those will probably be a reasonable price compared to some newer laptops. And then they also have Panther Lake here, which is amazing. If they don't take back decent laptop market share this year, I'm going to say it's because the press cried wolf. It's because I saw way too many of these press, like mainstream tech reviewer channels like, oh, Meteor Lake's just amazing and Alchemist, give it a chance. And then here we are, and this thing's awesome. If it doesn't do well, I think it will be because people have been sold a bunch of bullshit by the press about how good Intel is since after Alder Lake. And now it's actually good, and people just don't really see Intel as a good brand anymore, and they'll skip it. I hope that's not what happens, though, because genuinely, Panther Lake looks fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And, like, this is the thing where, for me, like, when on this podcast, a lot of the time, I've been pretty... I've been an Intel hater.
People have called you an Intel hater, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I want to like make my position clear. The reason like I don't want to talk about Intel a lot of the time is it's just, all right, we'll see it when it's there. Like, it doesn't mean I'm not interested in whatever the product is once it finally comes out. It's just at a certain point, it does just feel like Intel never meets expectations. Like, since Alder Lake, they really haven't, in my opinion. But you know, they finally did it again. So now I don't know if like my faith in Intel is completely restored. Like, who knows? Maybe this is just another Alder Lake, and what comes after like Nova Lake is going to be disappointing too. But you know, my interest is now more peaked in Intel at least, and I can be more excited about Intel in the future. And obviously I hope Panther Lake exists in some actual volume, because this might be the best product launch. This might be the best product in theory that comes out this year. So
yeah. So a couple more things. Well, let me say this to what you just said actually first. So right, this makes you way more excited for Nova Lake.
Yeah,
like just if anyone's wondering, I've heard and I've leaked some very lofty claims about Nova Lake, claims that I want to be true. I want every product, people, to be as good as it could possibly be. I don't want anything to be bad. But you know, I've heard all types of things about Nova Lake, and I've been like, all right, well, let's see. I mean, you guys do know that you have like a 40% gaming deficit to climb with AMD to tie where they are now before you even consider that Zen 6 is insane, you know. But when I see Panther Lake deliver this, and it's not magic, I mean, it uses 18A, you know what, AMD's on 4 nanometer. So then what, you go to 3 and then 2 and then 18A. I guess 18A is kind of their 2 nanometer, allegedly, you know, but it's at least 2 nodes advantage to AMD. So it's just like when the first Apple chips came out and I'm like, well, yeah, they're using a better node and it's huge. Like, I can tell you why they're doing this, but that hasn't been Intel in the past. In the past, Intel has used like nodes ridiculously better than AMD and somehow lost.
Yeah.
So I think even though they have a node advantage, it's clear they're effectively utilizing the node as much as they should be. When I see this now, I look at Nova Lake using massive 2 nanometer dies and I go, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it can compete with Zen 6. Maybe it'll beat it. Yeah. You know, I don't know if it will. I still hear insane things about Zen 6, but when is Zen 6? Well, I think Nova Lake. Yeah, we'll get to that too later, the Nova Lake stuff. But I think this actually might be a very good year for Intel.
Yeah. And for me, as far as things go, it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm outright enthusiastic about Intel yet, but I'm tentatively excited.
Yeah. And and here's what I will say though. I would you agree though? You would, assuming you can get it for reasonable prices, which to be fair, from what I've heard, it will be priced possibly just a bit below Strix Halo at times. So if Strix Halo right now is $2,000 to $2,500, Panther Lake's probably going to be like mostly $1,500 to $2,300. So like it's not going to be cheap. But if you can get any, and I've seen some listed, we'll just see if they're in any real volume. Like if you can get like this in a decent chassis with a great screen for $1,300, I'll say for myself first, yeah, I'm going to recommend this over pretty much everything AMD has, unless you're on a strict budget and a Gorgon point is $800. And it's like, well, okay, so that's 50, like more than 50% more for, maybe it's not worth it to you, but otherwise you agree, like this is easy to recommend.
Oh yeah. And
this could be our go-to recommendation.
Yeah. And I do think like with laptops, especially, like you do really need to look at things holistically with a laptop when both competitors are good. And I think both are generally pretty good, but Panther Lake has a huge opportunity to really beat AMD at everything under like $2,000 though.
Yeah. Yeah, at least in the form factors we like, where me and you are pretty much done with dedicated graphics for the most part.
Yeah.
And here's the reason too why I can also recommend it. I asked Just Josh this is in the video I just put out, like if I could quote him on something he told me, and he said yes. When I asked, is Panther like stable, and he crashes, stability issues, he said rock solid, not a single issue. And he said, unlike the colossal disaster that is the RTX 50 series. So I just want to point that out. From what I'm hearing from people, no one is saying it's unstable, and we'll have to wait and see. You know, Intel's track record with supporting their products long term is not good. But if there's zero issues now, let's give them a chance.
Yeah.
You know, let's give them a chance, because they didn't just go from having all of the issues to having the same amount as AMD or the same amount as Nvidia, which I said that next because Nvidia has more issues than AMD now, whether people admit it or not. No, he's like, it's just completely stable, right up there with Strix Halo, no issues. Great. And if that's true, I do think they deserve a chance with this thing, because it is great. Let me see here. So the final thing to talk about here is like AMD's next steps. I mean, it was in the write-up, you know, really all they can do is drop prices. But one thing I would point out is, and this is something the Fox said in his Panther Lake review, he said, Panther Lake is a huge advantage in efficiency, like below 25 watts. He said in his testing, Strix Halo is horrible at high performance tasks below 25 watts because its memory controller algorithm or whatever is terrible by default. And if you optimize that and optimized when it uses the CCD, he's like, I can get massively more efficiency at those power levels. So there's rumors out there right now of a Gorgon Halo. It remains to be seen if AMD could bring out something that actually boosts efficiency 20%, is overclocked, and drops for back to school. If it does, and if it's priced the same as Panther Lake, that actually is an across the board win in performance, though, probably for AMD, with the caveat of an extreme longevity battery life, like YouTube on low brightness, Panther Lake will win. But I don't think it's impossible AMD responds with at least an aggressive Gorgon point push, a Gorgon Halo push, not point because it's just not as good. Gorgon Halo push for back to school. That's plausible. Having said that, if they do that, it needs to be in more laptops.
Yeah. And I guess they're not direct competitors, but like I could see them having offerings for similar prices with like the 388 and 392, right? The Strix Halo cheap edition, I don't know what we want to call those. Like
over a better GPU, probably going to be cheaper edition. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you're looking for a gaming laptop with an iGPU, those still might be the best option, but we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see. But I guess what I'm saying is Nvidia, no Nvidia laptops, unless you can't get any of these things. But from what I hear, you should be able to at least get Lunar Lake and Panther Lake. There might be some decent offerings, you know, like unless you can't get them at all. I mean, all Nvidia laptops below the 5070 Ti, I now do not recommend flat out. And I don't see any way for Nvidia to respond besides actually having new laptop GPUs that come out late next year. I mean, full no recommendation anymore there. Strix Halo already, and Strix made me basically not recommend Nvidia on laptop. Panther Lake, this is the final nail. It's like gone. As for AMD, There is room to respond, though. I mean, and Just Josh did tell me this as well. He said, honestly, though, if you had like a 5070 Ti laptop, well, I mean, Panther Lake versus Gorgon Point, they basically tie performance for less efficiency for AMD, but they do tie performance. Like, so there is an argument, though, that if AMD can get DGPU laptops down to like 1,200, 1,000, then it does become a real question.
Sure.
It wouldn't be a question for me. I don't care. I'll take the performance haircut of like 20, 30% to just game on battery for 5 hours straight and not have to worry about if I brought my charger or not sometimes. But there will be people where if it's like, well, here's $1,500 for a Panther Lake laptop, and then here's $1,200 for a Gorgon Point laptop with a 5070. I mean, you could see why that could be an issue for Intel. So we'll see how it falls. But in terms of the actual silicon itself, this thing seems awesome. Jensen Wang, Nvidia is in a bubble Ryzen. And he says, if Battlemage 32XE actually launches, given it would perform faster than prior Intel Battlemage products, would you bet $100 they would call it Celestial? All right, so I have to explain here, damn. Lunar Lake has Battlemage. Like, full stop, people. It does. It has Battlemage. Tom Peterson, and Intel's professional liar, said it had Battlemage, and then recently they said, well, now we're saying it had Alchemist. And the reason they're calling Panther Lake, I believe, also I don't know, they're calling it XE3, and they're kind of distancing themselves, I think, from Battlemage and Alchemist and all that. The reason they're calling Panther Lake XE3 but not Celestial is because the level of performance dictates the architecture name, is what he said.
That's annoying.
Right, because the 5060 is ampere or Pascal. Like, what are we talking about? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's a confusing way to go about things, but yeah, I guess sure.
Tom Peterson is the master of confusing people. Not really sure why he's still at Intel. But what I will also take this as an opportunity to say is I didn't add it to this because, again, I'm kind of done caring about dedicated ARC. But allegedly there will be the Battlemage will come out, the big Battlemage, and it will be professional only, like I speculated. And I believe Tim also agreed. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to read this reader mail at a minimum to acknowledge I've seen the rumors that Battlemage may be professional only. I just don't even think it's worth being a story or a part of the wrap up because it's kind of what I've thought they were going to do for a long time, and we've said so. But all right, let us then move on to story number 5. Tired of getting hit in the face by unfair prices from Microsoft software? Well, you don't need to deal with that anymore. Start off 2026 right by going to CDkeyoffer.com. That's right, this piece of content is once again sponsored by a sponsor that has been a supporter of Moore's Law is Dead for almost the entire channel's life, CDkeyoffer.com. And I've been partnering with them for this long because they just give gamers something that I think they need to have: fair pricing on Microsoft Windows and Office products. And in fact, if you go down to the description, you can click on the links there to support the channel by checking out their products, but then also support the channel further if you use offer code BROKENSILICON to save yourself an additional 25% on all Microsoft software. And there's also Die Shrink to save 3% off everything else on the website. Once again, I'm very happy to be working with CDkeyoffer.com another year of this channel's life, and I hope you'll show support to a company that supports this channel, CDkeyoffer.com. New Arrow Lake benchmarks, Arrow Lake refresh benchmarks leak in line with previous Moore's Law is Dead leaks. Quoting from Tech Power Up, a Core Ultra 9 290K, I guess we're doing this now, plus managed to build upon the current flagship's officially ranked achievements based on multiple entries. It benchmarked 7% better in single core and 9% better in multi-core when compared to AMD's fanciest Granite Ridge desktop offerings, that is the 950 X3D so far. The Core Ultra 9 290K Plus would be 2% faster in single core and 11% in multi-core. Interestingly, the lesser core Ultra 9 270K Plus model was Geekbench in December as well, producing a score of 3,235 in single threading and 21,368 in multi-core. The flagship Arrow Lake S refresh SKU, therefore, is about, okay, so is about 7% faster than existing, 285K, and 15% faster multi-threading than that as well. So yeah, with the bombast of the impressive looking Panther Lake, the long rumored Arrow Lake refresh is now here as well. And it's pretty much fallen off the radar though. Yeah, because they were supposed to release it at the end of next year. And going by the recently surfaced Geekbench results, deservedly so. Although to be clear, it's not nothing. It is totally in line with what we leaked, that they would maybe get to high single digit or a little bit more in performance increases. Specifically, if we compare it to the competition and the benchmarks, according the X Elite ties Strix Point in single threading, and this beats it in 8% in multi-threading. The Plus SQ got a very underwhelming improvement there. Yeah, so I'm just going to stop reading the write-up. The point is, Arrow Lake refresh has been benchmarked. It's allegedly coming out in a couple months on desktop. I mean, yeah, look, it might be slightly faster in single threading compared to AMD, what they have right now. It might win in multi-threading by double digits, but I believe the 9950X3D2 is just going to catch right back up to it while having even more features you'd actually want on desktop. So I do think this is something you can ignore. It's better than what a lot of people thought it would be. This is not a 5% uplift, but I still just think no one... Look how good Panther Lake is with Cougar Cove. Don't buy Arrow Lake. Arrow Lake was kind of a dud, just like Meteor Lake. Panther Lake is great. Wait for Nova Lake. Don't build the new Arrow Lake system, and I wouldn't upgrade your Arrow Lake CPU. I mean, who cares?
No, yeah, this is I don't know. To me, it falls similarly under the category of like the 9850X3D, where it's like I guess we need to see for final pricing what this thing will actually end up costing, but I don't know. It's like, all right, you've released a slightly overclocked CPU and it's slightly better performance and it'll cost slightly more money. If that's all it is, it's like, I guess this thing exists.
Yeah. So I don't know how much more time we really need to spend on it. It's just, it's there. It's in line with what we leaked. And I don't think you should care about Arrow Lake, guys. I just don't. All right, let us move on then to story number 6. Intel Nova Lake desktop supposedly still targeting late 2026, quoting Lip Bhutan, Intel's quarter 4 2025 earnings remarks. Here we go. Our client momentum was on full display at CES earlier this month, where we formally launched Series 3 with our OEM partners. Series 3 is Panther Lake. Powering over 200 notebook designs, Series 3 will be the most broadly adopted and globally available AI PC platform we have ever delivered. Along with our next generation Nova Lake coming at the end of 2026, we now have a client roadmap that combines best-in-class performance with cost-optimized solutions, giving me confidence that we are on the path to fortify market share and profitability in both notebooks and desktops over the next several years. And so there you have it. Intel has another end-of-year launch on their hands, most likely with Nova Lake. This one should be similar in one thing. We believe it will come down to the wire, launching very, very late this year. Not only has Intel CEO said end of instead of the more vague and optimistic quarter 4, right, or even H2, but we now know how middling the Arrow Lake refresh is going to be, yet it's still coming. Why would one launch a middling to disappointing Arrow Lake refresh in like quarter 2 of this year if Nova Lake was launching in 5 months or something? So I'm still excited to see this and see if Intel's brute force of BLLC can close the Vcache gap. But I still would expect this to probably be a November or December launch, and maybe almost a paper launch just to desktop. And from what I've heard from OEMs, they don't expect Nova Lake until next year. Like they're just saying, we're told it's not till next year. So that means laptop for Nova Lake is almost certainly next year. And what we're probably going to see is Nova Lake reviews before the end of the year. But still, I think that's better than hearing nothing, because we've said it on the last episode, I think, starting to get worried Nova Lake was going to slip more than that. Weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would rather see reviews sooner rather than later. But
that means at least basically quarter 1, whereas I was kind of worried to be like quarter 2 or 3 next year.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets delayed essentially an entire year, not great. But yeah, if we see this in quarter 1, I don't know. I like if they continue executing like they did with Panther Lake. We might actually see a real boxing match between AMD and Intel this time around rather than just one of them trouncing the other. So, excited for that. But to me, like these announcements of like, I don't know, them kind of whispering it's still coming out in 2026, like it proves that Intel isn't a completely reinvigorated or new company at this point, because these habits by them, not a huge fan of, like never quite knowing when a product is going to come out, as they always seem, what they consider a launch seems to be a moving target. But
yeah, maybe it's just because I like Panther like so much, but I'm gonna hesitate from being overly negative about this, just because we'll see. If it comes out in November and they have the motherboards and you can buy it, it'll be hard to get because it's the best thing, but reasonably you can buy it. I think this shifts that they're executing again. I mean, boom, Panther Lake, the Nova Lake, same year, even if it's the end of the year. Again, I think that's much better than them kind of letting AMD have the advantage and, launching well before Zen 6 Desktop does, which again, I under the impression right now Zen 6 Desktop is slipping to like maybe even the middle of 2027 or something. If that happens, this is still a good half year where Nova Lake might tower over the competition. I still think there's room here to believe that actually, to a degree, Intel's catching AMD with their pants down for once.
Yeah, and if not AMD, if Intel is able to beat AMD to the market, even with just like a paper launch, like the market of the mental market, like I think they can score a big win if like they can put out early reviews and say like this is what Nova Lake is, and it's not really going to be to exist in any true volume for like another month or two. But like if they have a paper launch with like a clearly defined actual launch date that they can meet, rather than like on shelves in Q1 2022 or whatever year that was when that happened, like sure, that's fine. Especially if they're really beating AMD to the market like way earlier than what AMD can do, like several months out, rather than throwing out a paper launch because they need to have something to announce alongside AMD's actual announcement.
Well, and I want to point out like how different me and your coverage is of this news already because of how Panther Lake has turned out. We're Panther Lake to come out, and it was like 20% faster than Strix. And it, lost to Gorgon point and multi-threading 1 and single threading by only 5%. And the battery life was better, but not like a game changer. And like all their promises of like 40, 50. Oh, it turns out that's with multi-frame Gen on or something dumb. We would look at this story about Nova Lake launching end of 2026 and go, great. So it's not coming out this year. But now because of this, we're like, maybe it is, because they actually delivered, right? I just think it's worth pointing out how one genuinely and let me say this, honest good launch changes things in perception. Otherwise, I think the only interesting question connected to this right now is, do you think AMD wakes up? Because they need to wake up. I don't think they should just wait for Zen 6 to get N2X. I think they should be accelerating Medusa Point to launch for back to school, actually, and like trying to get that out there with the 2 nanometer, CCD on there. If they can't, whatever. Launch Medusa Point with just 10 cores so that you can go toe to toe with the lesser Panther Lake versions, right? And just like start getting like, and then before the end of the year, launch the N2P variants of Medusa Desktop. Like, I mean, it drops into AM5. They don't even need to launch a new platform. Like, I wonder if AMD will do a full Zen 6 launch of like N2P products at like 6.5 gigahertz, and then wait for the N2X to come next year, or if they will see if they can do a paper launch of N2X with it, and just that won't be ready right away, because it would be quite a missed opportunity if they just let Intel have all this positive press with Panther Lake, and then before they even respond, they also get Nova Lake out, and it just looks like Intel's back in a major way with 2 releases, not 1. Like, what do you think?
I mean, AMD could have a pretty brutal year this year, and like the fact that, I don't know, in
the consumer space.
Yeah, well, the fact that what we're getting this year is at the beginning of this year's Gorgon point doesn't bode super well, but
Gorgon crap.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if they can meet the market with an actual new product launch later this year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than, yeah, if they can execute with Panther Lake and then Nova Lake in the same year, yeah, that's not a good look for AMD. I don't think they're like screwed in the consumer market, but we might be moving to a new market then where they're trading tit for tat who actually is
whoever launched first.
Yeah, whoever launched most recently truly just has the best product on the market rather than what we have right now where, I don't know, Arrow Lake is like worse than some of their older products, arguably.
Well, Meteor Lake was Arrow Lake, I guess, was still better, but I don't think it didn't increase performance. Yeah. I mean, yeah, arguably. Techno writes in, will Core Ultra HX with Nova Lake get the full 48 core dies or will it remain capped at 24? Yeah, I believe they will plan to put out the massive 48 or 52 core chip to laptop. I think so. All right. After multiple positive Intel stories, despite usually only having 6 stories, I could not tasty help myself but do story number 7, an extra story. Bartlett Lake won't even be supported by ASROCK motherboards. Don't have a write-up, just that came out from ASROCK, and I'm so sick of the people in the comments. Everyone knows it's a meme in the Moore's Law Z Discord now, or the Moore's Law Z Discord knows this has become a meme with the big fans to try to get Tom to start ranting by mentioning Bartlett Lake. Like, there's a few things that always trigger me, and that's that. And it's because I cannot believe that for like, the past year, or was it 2 years? People, ever since it's been rumored, it's like, oh, what about 10 nanometer Bartlett Lake could have 12 P cores? It's like, who gives a shit, guys? We're on 5 nanometer. And now we're on 18A with Panther. Like, you're telling me Bartlett Lake, tasty, nummy in my mouth. It won't even fit in your fucking motherboards. You should have never cared about Bartlett Lake. It was never for gaming. It was always outdated. It was only for embedded. And now you can't buy it.
I'm excited for it still, Tom.
So there we go. I just wanted to have a little rant there that I'm vindicated that you should have ignored it more than I could have even initially anticipated. All right. Moving on from the final story, let us get to the wrap up, which is, of course, the stories we thought were worth mentioning, but were not worth having their own 10-minute conversation. We actually have a massive wrap up here. I'm just going to start going through these. So Hardware Unboxed did extensive DLSS 4.5 testing. They already did some early testing, but now there's a lot. And I think it pretty much confirms me and your consensus from looking at all the early testing and consolidating it into an opinion, which is at least the way I would put it. And tell me if you agree. This is what we basically said back then. DLSS 4.5 is 3 steps forward, 2 backwards. It's not 2 forward, 1 back. It's like 3 forward, but then 2 full ones back in terms of like how you should think about it. Like, it's not always better. It is usually better. It's overall an improvement, but in a lot of ways, DLSS 4.5 has so many caveats where it's like, this doesn't feel like DLSS 3 or 4 or 2, where it's just better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why they would say, well, yeah, that's why we called it 4.5 and not 5.0, right? Like, it's a half step, I guess. Like, yeah, some of the areas, it's some of the testing they did, it seemed like there were certain losses in visual quality, even if you would say overall, like, the visual quality of DLSS 4.5 is better than 4.0. But then you get like, I don't know, mild regression in performance versus other DLSS versions, which isn't a surprise. But like, yeah, it's an improvement. But like, to me, I think Nvidia's big issue that they need to really get over at a certain point is, or get through at a certain point, is to make DLSS not muddled, because at this point, I do think too many iterations of DLSS exist in one game a lot of the time, and it makes knowing what settings to use, especially when like you also have the other gamut of settings that you can check. I mean, that you can toggle with. Like, I think it's a bit too much, and they need to pare down what is and isn't available in a lot of games with DLSS.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, we're not hating overly on Nvidia here. I said in the last episode with Hardware Unboxed, or with Tim from Hardware Unboxed, that there's some suggestion that with FSR4 on RDNA 3, maybe AMD can just add an experimental toggle that like forces it, and you can just manually do that in the Radeon drivers. And I said this thing here, and Tim agreed with me. No, that's not enough. I don't think that's enough. I don't want experimental support for my Strix Halo laptop with FSR4.
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out and make it easy to use in games. Same with Nvidia. Like this weird thing of like, oh, well, you know, once a bunch of games come out and it makes all of your RTX 30 series cards feel like potatoes, that's fine. You can just go do this. Maybe that's intentional. No, I don't think that's okay. I think clearly what you're doing with the new quality mode of DLSS 4.5 is it's really an ultra quality. Just call that ultra quality and like adjust what you make the tiers, and then you don't need to explain anything. There's just like an additional tier. And if you have an older card, no one will think it's weird that they can't run ultra quality as well. You know, I don't know. I think that they really need to think about doing that, because it's a bit silly. Also here in the wrap up, we have that Asus is killing 9800 X3D CPUs with their motherboards. Just kind of a FYI, a warning everyone out there, and that this has been something I think I've seen behind the scenes billowing, you know, that like some manufacturers kill these CPUs. Now Asus has been forced to respond. So clearly something's going on here. Also, as we mentioned with the Nova Lake confirmation for release dates, Intel had their earnings, and I'm not talking about them much. They didn't come up as part of a video because, again, you know, anyone who tries to say they're doing great, as much as we like Panther, like, they're not. I mean, I'm looking here and it's like data center is up, you know, it's up a little. Consumer down. They're basically flat still. And by the way, Intel's basically flat in a market where Nvidia and AMD are just line go straight up. So that's really bad, actually.
Yeah, and like as we record this, I'm just looking at Intel stock over the last 5 days, which I believe is comports with their earnings. They're down 5%, and over even the last just day, which is actually a few days after their earnings call, they're still down. Yeah, they're down 5% today, which I don't know. I don't want to be too down on Intel right now because they released a good product, but like, yeah, things still aren't great.
Yeah. Speaking of things not being great at Intel, AMD and Apple now each hold about 20% of the laptop CPU market. So I just want to again point this out to AI generated fish, the resident laptop hater. Guys, Apple is also doing so well now with their own CPUs that Intel's now down to like, it says here on TechSpot, they used to have 90% of the laptop market. Now Intel has 60, 20%'s Apple, 20%'s AMD. AMD's selling as many laptop chips as Apple. They're being pretty aggressive. But it's interesting to watch this happen, because you could see a situation, though, where Panther Lake's great, but what happens if they still fall a little, and then like AMD doesn't need to get to 30% to like really ruin Intel's day. AMD needs to get to 25%, and Apple needs to get to 25%. Now Intel's to 50%. Now they're not
in the market. Even well, they're still the plurality, I guess. But
they start to not become the dominant player, and this is the last segment they're killing it at, so they can't afford to do that. So again, the Panther Lake had to be good. Like, this is probably more important than Nova Lake, guys. Like, they need to stop the bleeding in consumer. Also, Kojima Asus Strix Halo laptop. Have you seen this, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, it looks cool.
I don't know what to say. We both, of course, love Kojima's games, and this is quite out of left field. Also, I'm not going to go through the results, but the first Halo 392, so that's the 12-core with 40 compute units, APU benchmarks are out. Surprise. Seems really good, you know.
Shocker.
So we will see. This piece of content is brought to you by the Mall Race AX17 Pro, a giant screen on a budget laptop that has a privacy shutter, a Ryzen 3 4300U, which is enough to do office work. And if you're doing it, it has a 180-degree hinge that you can lay flat at business meetings, in addition to coming with 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage, a large capacity battery, and the ability to upgrade that storage and RAM as well. If you're interested in this product, look at it through the link below to support the channel and get it for $460 today. We've already talked about Gorgon Halo. We can skip this part of the wrap up. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. That's why it's here at the end. But Ubisoft cancellations and layoffs. According to Jeff Keighley, Ubisoft has canceled 6 games and delayed 7 others. They're also about to announce layoffs in a couple weeks. Good Lord. Ubisoft is going through a rough patch.
Yeah, that's sad. Don't know what else to say other than that.
I mean, they published some of my favorite games. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's rough out there in the game development world. I do know that from just the people I talk to. Oh, yeah, this was another interesting one. A new Switch is already rumored. I think most of what people are speculating is just that random speculation. Some of it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I saw some people saying, like, well, this new Switch 2 model could be the Switch 2 Lite, to which I would say, yeah, maybe.
Could be.
And then some people were like, well, it can't be because it's on 8 nanometer. That's not efficient enough. And I'm like, well, 8 nanometers better than what? It's better than 16, what they were making it on before, or whatever it was. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and if it's a handheld only, which I'm assuming it is, because that's what the previous Lite was, that means that they can like use worse yields, but keep them clocked super low.
Yeah.
So they can make it a handheld. And look, if in some games it only has a 2-hour battery life, whatever, man.
It's the cheap one.
It's the cheap one. That's what they will say. They'll say, plug it in, nerd. Yeah. So, and then there's this here. Also, it was confirmed that Nintendo Switch could start going through shortages soon. Well, PlayStation so far has not reported anything. So we'll see if that changes, and you never know in this market. But I just have to point that out because that also confirms what I leaked in the OpenAI leak, that from what I was hearing, PlayStation was one of the least affected companies short term. Another thing here, PS5 Pro in line with PS4 sales, aligned now, not like it hasn't caught up because it's launched later than when the PS4 Pro did. I think that's interesting. I mean, the PS4 Pro, you know, in hindsight was kind of a hilarious deal. I mean, the PS4 was $400. It was already really cheap even for the time. And then they launched it.
PS4 Pro was $500, right?
No, PS4 Pro is $400.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
They launched it at the same price. Price dropped the PS4. And, you know, it's interesting to me that the PS5 Pro is selling in aligned sales relative to the base PS5 just as well as the PS4 Pro did. This tells you that maybe Sony had some data that said, hey, the people that buy the Pro are just going to buy it and we should charge more.
Yeah, that just sounds like the Sony has a group of enthusiastic fans.
Yeah, and if the people that buy the Pro are the people that are going to buy the Pro because they play on PlayStation. So we might as well charge, honestly, not that much compared to a PC. So, you know, it's not lighting the world on fire, but I'm almost ready to say they were probably right to charge more. Not that I like it, but they probably made the right call from a business perspective. Speaking of business calls, Sony is letting TCL handle the Bravia product line moving forward. I've seen some people say this is not a big deal, like they're already working together and that this actually was already kind of in effect happening this way. But I still think it's crazy that Sony, the company synonymous with TVs just 40 years ago, is now no longer really a TV company.
Yeah, especially because, like, I don't know. I feel like Sony a lot of the time ends up being behind a lot of the tech that takes off in a lot of different spaces, even if they're not necessarily like the market leader in a lot of them. So this could be a pretty bigger shift in the market, at least, than you'd think it would be. We'll see. But.
Yeah, you know, and it's not a big deal. I think our parents had one Sony TV. I mean, I had a PlayStation monitor that was horrible.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
And then that was when I was in college, and I don't remember how or why, but like, I think it's because I got it.
It broke like 4 times in a row, and eventually they were like, just demanded that Best Buy refund it.
Because I went to college in Michigan, and but we grew up in Illinois. I think because I bought it in Illinois, they kept having to have the I think the RMA had to keep going back to our parents' house that wasn't where I was at college. So like whether it was Easter break or summer or like Thanksgiving, there was like 3 breaks in a row where I would bring back the broken Sony TV, give it to my dad, and then he would wait to bring it back to me. And I remember he said like 6 months after I got it, he went to Best Buy and said, "Can I please I almost just want to give this back." And the Best Buy person honored a refund. He said, "Basically everyone who's bought this has returned it." And I think it was just faulty power supplies or something stupid. And
yeah, it sucks because like that TV was interesting in theory, but it just
they tried to make a 3D TV for $500, which at the time was insane, and it was.
Yep.
But yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is I don't have the most exposure to Sony TVs, so it doesn't affect me that much, but it's a big deal. And at this point, that leaves Sony just basically a dominant gaming and camera company that happens to also make smartphones. That's basically all they are now. All right, here we are. Let us now get to the final reader mails. Carrie No Sugata writes in and says, in the last month, I've had a number of interactions where in my personal life, people are openly hostile to any use of AI and dismiss it out of hand. They don't care whether it's good or not. This is across sports, programming, gaming, and more. Are you aware of any AI algorithms that run locally that are popular apart from DLSS, FSR, and XE supersampling? Given the widespread hostility to AI, can you see any other locally run AI algorithms gaining traction with consumers in the foreseeable future? Do you think games developers should actually avoid developing AI based on interactions with NPCs and similar until it's clear gamers will accept it? I think there's a real question on that when we saw how people reacted to the Expedition 3033 teams, a small team with not a lot of money, using AI just for ideation, like just using it for concept art, like that they couldn't afford to have paid someone to do anyways at the time. That was insane to me. By the way, Carbon Cry wrote down a note. He says, I share your concern, but gamers have been against the concept of pre-orders for a decade, and yet pre-orders are doing just fine. Yeah, so that's a good counterpoint to what I just said. Yeah, I don't know. I think in the gaming area, there is a real consideration being made behind the scenes if anyone should use AI because they're worried it would affect their sales. I don't know, though, if it really would. You know, I think people hate AI when it sucks, and then that makes them talk shit about AI a lot without realizing they're already using it in DLSS, or that Gemini with Google actually works pretty well now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some interesting use cases for AI, like we talked about it, like the idea of maybe being able to do like use AI to like, I don't know, run NPCs or whatever, or like run a large language model for NPCs. That could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, people are pretty skeptical of AI because like, I think your general exposure to AI these days is seeing crap. Like one of the biggest ones you see all the time is that stupid ass Coke Christmas commercial that like looks worse,
terrible,
and costs a ton of money. And yeah, maybe like I guess one thing where AI is starting to take off with, or LLMs are starting to take off, is they do seem to be making genuine strides as far as like being a replacement, I guess, for like a search engine. That seems
it is like a chat bot. It actually is very good.
Better, yeah.
But you're saying, but outside of that, it's still, you know,
for art, I think people are rightfully pretty skeptical with a lot of AI art stuff because AI art just kind of looks bad most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it can help me make parts of thumbnails, but I always have to tweak it if I want it to look great. And I am much less likely to click on an article if it is AI slop pictures. Like, again, you can use AI to make your thumbnail. I don't care. Just like, don't let it either look like slop or do the final touches to make it look really cool. If I see just PS6 leak and it's like blah, colors everywhere, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to click on that. And I think there's a real apprehension there. So yeah, I think that's a real consideration for game devs. As for like the general zeitgeist and how people talk about AI. Oh yeah. I mean, I think I probably said before, me and my girlfriend go to Chicago to stay with my friends who live there every New Year's Eve. It's always a blast. And the AI hostility at the party amongst everyone was nuts. Now, granted, a lot of these people are on the more artsy side. Like some of them are literally actors and stuff, but still, They're not all. Some of them are programmers. Everyone just seems to hate AI, or the people who don't hate it aren't speaking up, and the people who hate it really hate it, to the point that I don't know that all of them really knew like what it was, because me and you have been openly hostile towards AI for a while. But I will say, yeah, I use ChatGPT every day, and it does save me a ton of time. Now, does it save me 40 hours a week? And no, it doesn't. Does it save me maybe the equivalent of half of a workday or a couple workdays every month? Yeah, and that's worth paying $20 to save a day's work a month. Yeah, it is. And I like that I do that now. It gives me a little more time off that I don't think I have enough of. And, you know, Gemini seems to generally work now for like Google's search engine. Generally. Every now and then it's still stupid, but it generally works. You know, I if I were to say that in some circles now, they'd be like, oh, it's stupid and it's evil. And I'm like, oh, I still think all these companies are probably overvalued and half of their claims are bullshit. But there is some promise there. And I do think there's clearly some backlash coming here, and as always, a lot of it's going to be irrational, even if it's happening for a reason. And I've noticed it. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, like everyone's hostile towards AI. A lot of it's for a good reason, but I am noticing people start to say irrational things.
Yeah, I mean, my big problem with it is like if you look at the way it operates, it's kind of destroying a lot of towns. And
so that's the part that I am
every time. Yeah. And I'm getting really tired of every time Jensen Huang gives a keynote about something, it's we're about to destroy jobs power hour. That's every keynote they give now. But
yeah. And I think a lot of it's misplaced, because I think a lot of the hate on AI right now is actually they're just mad at the tech billionaires, and they should just say that.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. It's like they go out there and they say, oh, this is going to change the world. It's not going to remove any of your jobs. Then they go into like they literally go into an earnings call and they're like, we think this will reduce workforces and save money. It's like, you literally just said it won't cost any jobs, and you're telling your shareholders it's going to remove a bunch of jobs. Like, can you, again, earlier in this episode, cut the bullshit and stop lying to us. Don't tell us to not believe what our eyes and ears tell us.
Yeah, especially when in some of those addresses, it's like they won't explicitly say it, but if you like, I don't even want to say reading between the lines, because I think that's doing too much. I think that's implying there's too much implied there. It's like if you're like kind of listening to what they say, they're like, well, agentic AI is going to replace all PAs is their idea. Like, that's their idea.
Yeah. Otherwise, their numbers don't make sense why this would be profitable, how much they're spending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess one final thing I will say is in terms of advice I would give to games companies, and it's something I've already said, Xbox, do not come out and announce Magnus and say Copilot, 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 like you said, TV with the Xbox One, or this truly will be the end of Xbox for good. And maybe even the brand itself, not just the consoles. And that's my concern. And my advice to Sony would be show, don't tell. If it has AI, don't have an OAI section. Just have a game dev come up, show off their new game, and have one part of the trailer or whatever, the overview, mention using AI and that this is only possible on PS6. But I'd also recommend Sony that by the time these things come out, like, you know, late 27 or maybe early 28, that they should not go out and make AI the first thing they say. They should just show what you can do on the consoles you couldn't do before. And if AI is a footnote, it's probably okay. Just show them the new gameplay. And speaking of which, Jensen Huang writes in yet again and says, the features you could say Radeon was beating Nvidia at would be new hardware and memory tech, in my opinion. He's referencing us talking many times recently, like, why can't AMD make new features? And Nvidia can. They had unified shaders shipping first, GDR5 shipping first, HBM shipping first, but the software has pretty much always been on parity, or Nvidia is ahead. No, first of all, Nvidia was the first one to ship with unified shaders with the 8800 GTX, and Carbon Cry just submitted that. And Terrascale, which technically did have unified shaders, does not utilize that paradigm shift very well. On HBM, not only did AMD ship first, they were deeply involved in its development. Yeah, so look, I don't think hardware is the same as software, though. And even when it comes to hardware, NVIDIA launched GDR5X, GDR6X first, with AMD never launching those products. No, that's not as cool as HBM, but for every HBM you show, I can say NVIDIA was to GDDR7 first. So I think when it comes to software, the point stands. Our hardware blips in the past, and I'm sick of AMD seemingly always we're doing what NVIDIA is doing now and not doing more interesting things like they used to with like Mantle and Surround, Eyefinity, and all of that.
And I will also say, like, I think to some extent, like the pushback, because I've seen it other times with us talking about it, like the idea of like hardware, like a new piece of hardware tech as a feature itself rather than a thing that enables you to do a new feature. Like that's what people frankly care about. And I get unified shaders, like change the way graphics card design a ton. But it's like people don't give a shit if it doesn't enable you to do something new. It's just like saying they beat them to unified shaders isn't in and of itself a feature. Like that's all I'm saying is, okay, like you need to be able to like voice exactly what that does, not just say, well, I mean, we beat them to this tech.
Right, because AMD had what, like a dedicated like audio processor or something in the 290X to my memory, and it wasn't talked about enough. It wasn't mentioned enough in games. I mean, eventually PlayStation did that with the PS5, and they talked about it all the time, and it became a feature. It's like AMD, follow Sony's lead and how they do things. Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about why you would buy this and not the thing from the competition. But yeah, even in the past when they had a cool feature, like they had much better sound, no one knew that. The Forbidden Juice writes in, I'm curious if you have any sources that would be considered within the storage sector of the wider tech space. I'm guessing storage tech is maybe a little boring for you to cover much, but I'm curious if you have heard anything on PLC-based NAND storage being used in data center and when or if that technology would come to consumer space. Also, I'm curious if you think it would actually be decent enough to matter for consumers. I can't answer this question, man. But Carbon Cry can, apparently, who's part of the team, and he writes in, says PLC is still in prototype stages. SK Hynix has moved to a novel cell geometry to accommodate 5-bit cell 32 voltage states, so it is questionable whether the 25% per cell capacity increase balances out the increased production cost and increased physical cell size of the required geometry. I guess that's just a fun... Yeah, Dan. Sure. That is just a fun reminder, too, that when you support Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon, you're not just paying me, nor just Dan, you're also paying Carbon Cry, and then Gerard and John Philippe as well, which a lot of people are probably going, what do you mean, John Philippe? Well, that's the renderer who makes renders of leaked stuff I have there. I can't show you the actual picture, but I'd like to show you the render. I bring him up because he just finished something for me.
Who knows?
Maybe I'm sitting on a leak for like 3 months until news stops happening, and then I can just drop this. And it's so ahead of time that I don't think I need to worry about when it comes out, actually. Dan knows what it is, but we will say no more. But yeah, on that note, please do support us on Patreon. Please also subscribe to Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube and ring the bell button. Like the video, share the video, hype the video, comment down below for the algorithm. This is the part where my brain stops working. And also subscribe to Broken Silicon, your podcast app of choice, and give us a review there. That also helps spread the gospel of Moore's Law is Dead and spaces outside of YouTube. Some gold plates. Let's not. No, Dan. Let's not go down this road. My mistake for saying gospel, I guess. But yes. Find some righteous gemstones. There. That's a funny show on HBO that we can happily recommend. But otherwise, I think that's it. Dan, any final words?
I don't think so.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and have a good rest of your week.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carbon Cry and Kerry No Sugata as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/Support page. In the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Kerry No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and John Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong, we love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guest questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Full, Z-Gist, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, Toka, Aaron Close, Jan Rounard, MJB1, Daniel High, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jan Ferreira, Valka Malev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastro, Impressed AI Blocks, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Buma, Shredbird, Semi Malas, Chrysanthenos, Curry King 3, The Boss Haas, Tommy, Jonathan, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Gamers Unite, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Amiable Chief, Win Wang, Aisha, Zoot Suit Taylor, Mads, Patty Cakes, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Teak Autumn, Reginald Ari, Matthew Cassels, Windstar, Little Germany, James I. Raider, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bussell, Austin Haggerty, Jofit, Brian Scanlon, Hardland, Brian Wright, Slushbaugh, Jansen Angima, John Swin, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Dan M. 1988, Bing Bong 3, Solarized 80, Elbergun, Keekum, Sprutnik, Brian P. Hudat 42, Cornster 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Huger, Ander Kiwi, John Wick Boomstick, Mr. Tiger, Smash Axley, Penguins, Love AI, Porcelain Oats, Nick Mania, Charles Russell, Kareem Al Masri, AI Soldier 789, Rye Hill, Chi Bowles, Bespoke Exclamation Point, Manolis Redkusis, Kevin Kuntz, Fredford Berger, Jonathan Harris, Callan Reichel, Kainush, Kagani, Johnny Trans, Zabair, Ahmed, Josh, RKO, RK0, Zephyrin, Angel of Cake, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.